gasping for air.
I know. They're going to sue me one of these days.
They're going to sue you.
Welcome back.
And I'll be their lawyer.
You are a lawyer, aren't you? Oh, no, sorry. Welcome back to Jeff Koinange live at the Villa Rosa Kempinski here with Professor Makau Mutua. Tweets coming in thick and very fast. Twitter handles at Makau Mutua, at Koinange Jeff. The hashtag is Makau Mutua. Let me just read a few. There's a gentleman by the name of Moses Nandalwe. He says, AKA Aliko Dangote. I don't know why he calls himself that, but that's his story.
Okay.
He says, I like you, Makau Mutua. Be fearless as usual. As one of the critics of the government, which way will we find the killers of Jacob Juma? All right? And then there's a gentleman, Kenneth Kigundu, asks Makau Mutua whether he is really a graduate from Harvard University. Hold that thought. Keith Peters, ask him about crystal balls and what we ought to take to the bank for this moment in this charged political atmosphere.
Well, first of all, there are no crystal balls. There's a crystal ball. Just a question of English.
There you go.
There are no crystal balls. There's a crystal
ball.
There's a crystal ball.
Yeah.
And you know, it's basically what I'm trying to say to people is that I've said before that a people get the government that they deserve. If a society is willing to be docile, they'll be ruled in that fashion. One of the issues that we have to think about as Africans, whether we are part of the elite or whether we are part of the ruled, we have to look at our history. And I want just to make two quick points on this. Africans are a fatalistic people. We have gone through so much. We went through the slave trade. We went through the Cold War. We went through the traumas of the post-colonial state. In the first instance, as a one-party state, as a military state. Our people have been brutalized like almost no other people in the history of the world. Okay? That's why we are fatalistic. Because we are used to this constant barrage of mistreatment and inhumanity. Just look at our history, you know, it's a fact. But what is so interesting for me as a social critic is that even as we are fatalistic in the way we look at life, we are also extremely optimistic. Now this looks like a contradiction, but it is not. People who have suffered a lot are also the people who are the most forgiving. They're the people who can absorb a lot of attacks and still keep on ticking. We are still ticking. We are still here, are we not?
We are.
Yeah. So for this country, I want to say to Kenyans is that, to the people who are ruled, they should understand that the power that the government has does not belong to the government. The power of the government is donated to the government by the people, by individual citizens. That's why you are so concerned when I don't call Mr. Kenyatta president.
You just did.
I'm just expressing myself here. That's why you are so concerned about that.
Yeah.
Because you are concerned about what one citizen thinks. Kenyans should know that they have that power to withhold endorsements or to withhold their, support for a regime.
Yeah.
Okay? On the side of those who rule us, I just want to tell them that they should not take this for granted because it is not God-given. It doesn't come from, the Ethernet. It comes from the people. And that if they want to be legitimate, it is so much better for them to deliver for the people so that for the three categories of, exercising statehood, whether you want to be feared, whether you want to be loved, or whether you want to be respected, that I understand fear is important for people to have effective state power. But I think the most important thing is to be respected. And you are respected only when you deliver. So to come back to the question that you raised, I'm sorry to have given you this winding response, but when you have a real professor on the bench, this is what you get.
That's what you get.
It's what you get. That for the IEBC, for example, or for even the killers of Mr. Juma, the people must insist on answers.
Before you go to IBC, Prof, real quick, the Harvard University question. Did you go to
Yes.
Harvard?
I was educated there. I just briefly, I would say that I went to the University of Nairobi, the University of Dar es Salaam, and Harvard Law School, where I obtained 2 law degrees, and I was also a professor there.
You taught there?
I taught there.
Whoa. IEBC, Prof. Every Monday is...
So on the question of the IEBC, I think that going back to my earlier scenario of power being donated by the people to the state, the most important thing that I want to say here is that if the people decide that they no longer have confidence in you as a public official, you must pack up and go home.
Come on, Professor. I mean, that makes no sense. This is a constitutionally elected office proposed by the government that was in power before. They picked it.
Fine.
They picked the commissioners.
Fine. If, let me just say this to you. If all governments and all public institutions were to hide behind their legal mandates, then we'll be ruled by thugs and thieves and rapists and murderers. The reason why you've seen the president of Brazil, a very popular first-term president, go down the drain, and I think she's probably going to leave, no matter the current shenanigans that are going on, is the people decided they could no longer trust her, and people went into the streets day after day and forced a process of impeachment to be started. If you look at the Arab Spring, throughout the Middle East, people rose up. If you look at our own situation in this country during the era of the one-party state, people rose up.
Yeah, but this is not the same, Prof.
No, I'm coming to you. What I'm saying to you is that if the people have decided, even if you are a popularly, democratically elected president, that they no longer have confidence in you, you have to resign. I think Japan is the best example of this that I know. The Japanese, when people decide that they don't like you, you pack up and go home. I do not know anyone. People who are saying that, let me just say this, people who are saying that Mr. Hassan and his group are being hounded by court are liars. They are both-faced liars, because the clerics have come out, both Muslims and Christians. Lawyers have come out, common citizens have come out. There is a chorus, a cascade.
Yeah, but Prof,
against this commission.
Are we going to be changing our IEBC after every election? Is that what you want?
It is not a question of what I want. It's a question of what the facts on the ground are.
But the facts
and the facts on the ground are that these people have lost the public. You cannot sit in an office 1 day longer, 1 second longer if the people don't want you.
Which people, which public, Prof? It's just the opposition.
No, it is not the.
You said the church, okay?
Yeah.
Diplomats had a big meeting with the opposition.
Yes.
They told them, listen, man, go slow. Go slow. Let's go the constitutional way.
No. I think that the diplomats were being diplomatic. Okay? Diplomats are being diplomatic. What the diplomats basically said, they try to split the difference. And what they basically said is the opposition and the government should talk about a way forward. Yeah. They were not endorsing the IEBC.
Okay. IEBC goes, let's say,
Yes.
for argument's sake.
Yes.
Who's next? The Supreme Court? The police? The military? I mean, who's next, Prof?
I just think that if public institutions are not performing the role for which they were, constituted and for which they were appointed, they should leave, Jeff. We should not be afraid of a revolution, for God's sake. Why are you afraid of a revolution?
I'm not afraid, Prof, but I just think it's wrong the way they're going about it.
No. What is wrong about people using the book called the Constitution to demonstrate in the streets? This is the first democratic right of any people, is to go out in the streets and call out those whom they disagree with. So, if I don't like your show, I can come and picket here. Are you going to tear gas me?
Well, I'll put the fire extinguisher.
I mean, look, man. This is, I have not seen anything wrong that they have done. Even if they go to the front gates of the IEBC and they shake the door of that building. That is not a riot.
It's kind of pointless, Prof, because look, you start off with 1,000 supporters, the next week you have 500, the following week you have 200, by week 4 you have 3 people.
I don't think that's going to happen. And I'll just tell you something. You know very well, Jeff, and I as much as I do, and I know you love this country as much as I love it, we want a legitimately conducted election. We want that.
Who's we?
Everyone in the country. I think we do. I think most people do. And I think most Kenyans are of good faith, and they want that. The problem, however, is with the IEBC is that even when you look at Mr. Hassan, he looked like a lying SOB, man.
Oh, Prof.
No, he does. I mean, you know, he has so much anger and venom towards the opposition, he can't be credible. He just cannot be credible.
Just by his looks.
The way he talks. I mean, every time he mentions Mr. Odinga's name, it is like he becomes a viper, a snake.
Prof, that's a little unfair, man.
No,
because
man,
it was former Prime Minister Raila Odinga who said Itzhak Hassan is the man. He should be the chairman of the IEBC. He recommended this.
That was before. Now this is now. Like I said before, when you are given a public office, there are people, by the way, you know, who voted for Mr. Kenyatta, who don't support him now. People can change their minds. People can act with their own conscience, and people have, Jeff. You know, and I don't know what interest, you know, Jubilee or anyone has in protecting a bunch of commissioners who, for all intents and purposes, to me appear to be either incompetent, malignant, or just corrupt. I don't know which is which.
Prof, they've conducted at least a dozen by-elections since 2013, at least a dozen, and those have gone off pretty smoothly.
Some of them have gone pretty smoothly because most of those elections were conducted in zones which were already determined, you know, in terms of opposition, you know, Jubilee, so that we knew who would be the winners. What I think people are concerned about are the big elections, especially at the presidential level.
Are they concerned about 17?
I think they are concerned about 2017, and they should be concerned about 2017. And if I was, you know, if any Kenyan in this country should be concerned about it, because come 2017, if the election is not free or fair, or if one side or other cries foul, and there's violence, it is we, the common citizens, who are going to be in jeopardy, and these people who will have run for the election will be the first ones out of the country.
Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga was asked on Al Jazeera the other day,
yes,
if the IEBC is not reconstituted,
yes,
would you run?
Yes.
Will the opposition run?
Yes. You know, I mean, I would, that's a very heavy question. I don't take that question lightly, because I think if the opposition was to boycott the election, the election will be null and void.
Why null and void? I mean, if they boycott, then...
It's just a fact. If half the country boycotts an election, it's null and void. That's why it's in the best interest of Jubilee not to do that, not to let that scenario get to that far. What I would do if I was Jubilee is I would go back to the 90s, where there was the IPPG, the inter-parties you know, agreement, in which all the parties got together and they agreed that we can appoint people to the commission that we trust.
That's not going to work. That's not going to work. You're going to appoint people that you're close to. Like someone was saying, you know, Jubilee appoints to, Court appoints to.
But you know there are formulas that can work. So you can avoid you can avoid the problem that you are talking of gridlock. You can have 3 you know, people appointed by the opposition, 3 appointed by you know the Jubilee coalition, and then you can have 2 internationals. You can have 2 internationals appointed by the United Nations under the agreement of both parties. And I was in South Africa for the election that brought Mandela into power. And in that election, there were mostly South Africans, but there were several internationals who were there just to make sure that, because we don't trust each other as Kenyans on this one.
We don't.
We just don't. So we may need another external hand to tell us, stop. You know, 1 + 1 is 2, it's not 3. Because apparently when they count the votes, I understand that at IEBC, 1 + 1 is 5.
Prof, who are we going to trust if not ourselves?
You know, the process of nation building is a long process.
It's painful too.
It's a painful process, and I can tell you that as Kenyans, I have found in my lifetime very few people that I can call Kenyans. I have found individuals who live in Kenya who carry a Kenyan passport, but they're just paper citizens. They're not Kenyans. Because in their heart, there's nothing Kenyan about them. They are Kikuyus, they are Kambas, they are Luos, they are whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we never made that leap to deposit our loyalties as a people to a nation.
People say that about you, Professor. I've seen some people say that about you.
I don't know what they say. I have to see what they say specifically.
If they say you're a paper Kenyan, you're not patriotic, you live in America, you spend most of your time outside this country.
Well, I will let history judge that. But what I will say to you is that I have poured my sweat and blood in this country, even from abroad. You know, I'll just say that. And I'll just say to you also that I lived in Tanzania for 3 years. I was exiled by a government of Kenya for standing up for the rights of Kenyans. For 3 years, I was exiled, and for the next 10 years, I could not come back to this country. I was in exile. That's how I ended up at Harvard Law School, for your information.
Yeah.
Yeah. University of Dar es Salaam, and then Harvard Law School. And I'll say this to you, Jeff, that when I was in Tanzania, I just give that as an example. If you meet a Kenyan in the streets who does not know that you are Jeff Koinange, and the first thing they want to know is what's your name. And if you say you are Koinange, they brand you.
In Tanzania?
Here.
Oh, here, right, okay.
Yeah, they will basically say that, oh, that's a Kikuyu, and then they put you in a box. And then they deal with you accordingly. And accordingly may not be very polite.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
If you are in Tanzania, I lived there for 3 years. No one ever asked me what my ethnicity was. All they wanted to know was, do you speak Kiswahili? And if you spoke Kiswahili, sawa kabisa. Hakuna shida. Okay? There is something that Tanzanians have done that we haven't. Yeah, they built a nation. We built a country. There's a big difference.
Good point. Good point. And that's true. I mean, Nyerere, with his Ujamaa, he had his failures, but...
He forged a nation. There's no question about that.
Let's take a break, Prof. Come back, talk about... Have you been hearing stories about senators wanting to be governors?
Yes, I have. There is something in the water, man, in this country. There is something in the water.
Yeah.
It could be sulfur.
It could be sulfur.
It could be sulfur.
And what about refugee camps closing?
Yeah,
Dadaab, Kakuma?
I think it's inhumane.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, congratulations on your book.
Thank you very
You
much,
launched
man.
it last week in Washington?
Yes, at the World Bank.
You didn't bring me a copy?
Oh, you know, I forgot to bring you the copy. I did, because I was traveling when I came here.
Kenyan.
So you admit I'm a Kenyan?
Yeah!
Oh!
Well done.
Yeah.
Touche.
You're also my brother from another mother.
There
man.
you go, my brother.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Professor Makau Mutua.
Yes.
The real prof, right?
Yeah, the real prof.
The real deal, Holyfield.
Yeah, you can say hashtag the real prof.
Keep tweeting at Makau Mutua, at Koinange Jeff, the hashtag Makau Mutua. We are talking issues, we're talking the stories making headlines this past week. The prof is sparing nobody. We're going to take a quick break, come back. Jeff Koinange live at the Villa Rosa Kempinski. We'll be back.
I've never spared anyone, Jeff.
Clearly you haven't.
I haven't.
Including the former Prime Minister.
Including the former Prime
Who's your
Minister.
mate?
What do you mean, my mate?
You know, he's your buddy.
That's a leading statement. What do you mean, my mate?
Back in a moment.